Hey, welcome everybody. I hope you've all had a lovely day so far. I'm very excited about this evening. We are actually using some new software, so please bear with us. I think everything is working perfectly, but if we do have any technical faults and if I disappear, you have been warned and we'll try and sort them out as quickly as possible. Um, a couple of things to mention that's quite exciting is tomorrow you should be getting an email about the possibility of actually buying a full-size bottle from both of the drams that we've tried today. So that's really cool, and they should actually be at an exclusive price for members. So if you really love one of these whiskies, hopefully both, you can hopefully tomorrow buy a full bottle and get it sent to you. Another thing that we're really looking forward to is how we can interact with you more, and specifically in feedback. So over the next couple of weeks, you'll probably be contacted with us with a new way of how you can share your tasting notes, how you enjoyed the whiskies, and the kind of things that you'd like to see going forward, which is really cool. Right, with this evening, two distilleries that I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about. They're relatively new to me, and maybe to you guys as well. So that'll be quite exciting. And then some big news here at the Whisky Me production is actually we're going to put in a new format. Traditionally, it would always be the traditional whiskey first and then the world whiskey afterwards. But this time we're going to do a coin flip, which is quite a nerve-wracking thing to do live. So I probably will drop it, and then I'll have to pick it up, and then we'll decide. But yeah, so let's have a go, shall we? Tails. So let's see who we're going to be bringing in today then. This is where we have to wait nervously to see if it's actually worked.
What's the crack?
How you doing? You right?
Not too bad, not too bad. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. So Dave, where are we greeting you from today?
So I'm Dave, the Global Brand Ambassador for Dingle Distillery. So we're a little independent distillery, craft distillery down in Dingle in County Kerry, southwest of Ireland.
How fantastic. I'm so excited. This one, a wonderful nose on this one. And before we actually taste it, can you tell us a little bit more about your craft distillery?
Yeah, so Dingle, we would have been one of the first independent distilleries built in Ireland in 50 to 100 years. We started distilling single malt, single pot still whiskey and Dingle gin and Dingle vodka back in December 2012. So we will be 13 years old at the end of this year. Before we opened up, there was only pretty much Middleton, Bushmills and Cooley Distillery. And then one or two other distilleries opened up at the same time. So a lot of people saw us as kind of breaking through for a lot of the Irish distilleries that are around today. We kind of pushed through and got it up and running with the little bit of money that we had. But the lads were, they had a background in the industry, the bar industry and the drinks industry. So they knew what they had. So yeah, we have a lovely, very full manual distillery. So put it this way, it's like going back in time in distilling. There is no automation. Mash tun dug out by hand twice a day, cuts done by hand, cask filling, bottling, even bottling. We only got a semi-automated labeler there about a year or two ago. The lads kind of joke and call it semi-automated because it keeps breaking down so much. But before that, every bottle was labeled by hand by all the lads and the girls in the distillery. So yeah, it's a very much a handcrafted product down in Dingle.
Oh, that's fantastic. So that's very interesting about sort of like the hands-on nature.
Yeah.
I think one of the things you mentioned there about the cuts. So it'd be interesting if we could go in a little bit more detail about what that actually means, because I'm sure some people do.
Yeah.
But for the people that don't, and then also the results you can get from taking larger or smaller cuts.
Yeah. So like, I suppose the best way of describing it is like, so we do our cuts by taste, by smell, by measuring ABV, all the little different things. So the guys and the girls have literally a chart beside the spirit safe where they have, tastes like this, smells like this, at this ABV, are about now, make a cut. So our distillation is pretty. It's a slow enough distillation. The lads and the girls start at 6 until 2, and then the second shift is 12 to 8. So they normally make 1 or 2 distillations of whiskey spirit, and then a distillation of gin and a distillation of vodka. So we've 3 pot stills for our whiskies that are made for sites in Scotland, and then we have a gin still and a vodka still, so we can actually make all 3 at the same time. But the lads and the girls would literally separate we'd start off with about 5,000 litres in our first still, so it's not a lot. And we would end up, if we did triple distillation, which we predominantly would do triple distillation, we would end up with 500 litres after the third distillation. But what you're literally trying to do is, probably a bottle is the best way, you're trying to get the centre cut of each distillation. Mm-hmm. So you're literally trying the heads and the tails have these kind of flavours, tastes, smells that you don't want in your whiskey. And the idea is to try and get the heart of that whiskey, and so that you're getting the purest, cleanest spirit that you can get. But also our stills are kind of small and fat. We've got like a small swan neck, so we like to try and keep as much oils and character in the whiskey, so our whiskey has a good mouthfeel. But again, we do the cuts by hand. The funny thing is, all our distillers would have learned how to distill. An awful lot of them wouldn't have been distillers from the start. So they would have learned from our master distiller at the start, Peter Mosley, and every single one of them learned the craft of distilling. So they would have shadowed Peter for 6 months, asking as many questions as they could, and then he'd flip it around and he'd be like, right, now you work away and I'll shadow you and I'll point out anything that I think you're doing wrong. So a lot of our distillers learned the old way of distilling. They learned by doing it by hand, by experience. So like the likes of Cormac and Pat that are down there now, they've been literally distilling in Dingle for 10 years now. And a lot of the newer distilleries around Ireland are mad to get our staff, because we're down, we're like, if you go from Dublin to Dingle, it's about 4.5 hours. So if something breaks, it's generally something specific, and you're either getting it from the UK, Germany, or somewhere like that. And the guy is like, oh, I'll fly over. And then he flies over and he goes, oh, it's not that part, it's this part. And then you have to wait another. So you can't be down production for 2 weeks. So Pat, I always joke, Pat is like Dingle MacGyver. He knows how to fix everything. So all the lads and the girls literally know how to fix anything that breaks. When any of these guys come over, they go, show me how to fix this, so that if it breaks, I can keep it running until you can come over and really do a proper job on it. So they're very experienced, of everything from the pipe work to getting it fired up, absolutely everything, to doing the cuts. So yeah, a lot of our staff, I don't want to say have been poached or robbed, but they are there. There's like 4 or 5 of them now that are head distillers in other distilleries, because they have that experience from the ground up, of exactly from literally the mechanical side of it, but then also that kind of, that more delicate side of it, of knowing when to make a cut. So, you know, like you take the cut, then you realize, right, it's coming towards the end of the heart, then you switch it off. And then, especially in your first still, you're going to run those feints again with some new spirit, just to make sure you've got everything out of it. But each time, like, you're taking that heart and moving it along, just to produce a better product for the customer at the end. And then, obviously, into your casks as well.
I love it, yeah. So thank you so much. It's very interesting to... if anyone's ever lucky enough to visit a distillery, and you can actually see the stills, they'll all be different shapes and sizes. And you mentioned there that yours is smaller, so there'll be less copper contact. I think what you need to have in mind is that alcohol is going to boil or water. So if it's rising up, and if it gets all the way over, it can then drop down. But if not, it's going to fail and have more and more copper contact as it's coming out. Those are those cuts that you're talking about. But I think all the people at home are probably desperate to try this whiskey now. Right?
Yeah. Sorry, I do talk a lot.
No, I think I was enjoying it so much. And I think also what we haven't done is we haven't discussed the differences, I guess, between, everyone has Scotch whiskey in mind in that kind of production method, which is... I'll just give a brief rundown. I'm stopping people from drinking whiskey myself now. So with Scotch whiskey, you have your wash, which is like a a weak beer, then distilled in your wash still, and then distilled again in your spirit still, and then a little bit of water is added, and then it's put in a barrel 3 years and a day, and then we're talking about whiskey. Right, we're now going to try this whiskey, and we're going to discuss the differences between Scotch whiskey and Irish whiskey, and let's taste this delicious whiskey.
Oh, I'm going to grab my glass.
So I think straight away, if you're used to drinking Scotch whiskey, you can see that this is a different nose. So what should we be smelling here?
So even though it's a single malt, because as I was saying, our stills are a little bit more, we'd class them as a squat still. They're very small and fat. The second, let's say your intermediate still and your spirit still have a boil ball, just to get, as you said, give more copper contact. So even with our pot still gives more of a spice, but our single malt still has that little bit of spice on the nose. So it just kind of tickles you on the back of the throat as you smell it. But then also as you taste it, you're going to kind of get that kind of big mouthfeel. And then we're lucky enough, we play around with a lot of first fill casks. We have started using second fill because we'll only be bankrupt if we keep using first fill. That's just the truth of it. So yeah, we have started using some second fill, but like the Dingle Single Malt whiskey would be between 5 and 7 years of age. We vatted it like a Solero system. So we use the bourbon barrels, Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez, and we vatted together. Paddy and Ian Paddy is he's that guy there behind me. Paddy is in charge of the distillery, but he was also a head of maturation, and now Ian is head of maturation. But they would handpick the cask and put it into this 20,000 litre oak vat. They'd fill it up with casks up to about 15,000 litres, and then slowly dilute that down to our 46.5. So we non-chill filter, no colouring added. What you see is what you get with our whiskey. We're very transparent. We're small. We don't need to hide anything. If you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you, plain and simple. So yeah, it's just, we found the little bit of higher ABV is good. It allows you to do that non-chill filtration. But then also, if you're having a good day, you don't need to add any water. If you're having a bad day, you don't need to add any water, so it's all good. But you can always bring it down, but you can never bring it back up, Yeah. Some people like to try and do it, but they blow up their garden sheds,
So we've had Brian from Facebook saying he absolutely loves this. And I totally agree. Now,
yeah, so like when we vat it together, the lads have slowly diluted for about 6 to 8 weeks. The idea is that it's something that we learned from some of our friends in the wine regions in France and Cognac and Armagnac producers. They were like slowly diluting it, like keeps a lot more of those base flavors, more of those foundation flavors. But then also it doesn't let the whiskey split. Let's say we've a filled at 15,000 litres and we dump 3,000 litres of water in on top of it, it could split the whiskey. But then also you could get this kind of exothermic reaction, like a little mini heat bomb, and that's going to burn off flavors, which we want to keep the flavors for the customer. So that slow dilution works. The lads would slowly dilute it up to anything from 17 to 19,000 litres and then take out 10,000 litres, bottle that, and then start refilling the vat up to that 15, 16,000 litre mark. So the idea is that even though you're putting in different barrels, the flavour profile should be the same. Yeah.
And is that like adding water, like, is someone doing that daily? Or
yeah, pretty much daily. Like it's literally like a petrol pump handle, climbing up the ladder and adding a little bit, giving it a taste every morning or every other morning, Paddy and Ian, and because that's pretty much their job. Like they're like, for us, because we're a small distillery, you normally have 2 or 3 jobs. So Paddy and Ian will be both, let's say, in charge of maturation, but also in charge of making sure that flavor profile is consistent. So when you buy a bottle of Dingle Single Malt this year and next year, they should be the same, even though they're, let's say, a different, batch in a way, but they're not batches, but different, different releases at different points of the year, but they should be the same whiskey. And that the Solero system kind of helps that as well. It allows it to it kind of leads itself towards that, which kind of helps them as well.
So let's delve into that a little bit more, because a Solero system, I believe, traditionally comes from sherry production.
Yeah.
But most famously Glenfiddich
Yeah.
famous for having Solaris systems. If anyone goes to Glenfiddich and you can look inside their dunnage warehouse, you'll see larger vats. But could you explain for you guys how you operate your Solaris system?
Yeah, so it's literally a 20,000 litre oak vat. And Paddy and Ian would be going through the warehouse here behind me, and they would be selecting, because they'd have taste. Paddy literally and Ian have this Excel sheet that's color coded that would literally blow your mind. They love it, but I look at it for like 5 seconds and I'm like, oh my God, there's way too much going on here. But they literally have, like, because each person in charge of maturation or cask will have their system. And if you go into a cask warehouse, you'll normally see chalk written on the side, or now modern days, it's like a QR code or a code on the side of the barrel. And when you put in that code, it'll give you the last tasting notes and where you think it is along its maturation cycle. So they're kind of working along that to figure out, right, I'm happy when this bourbon cask hits this point. I'm happy when this sherry cask hits this point. When it hits those points, that means it goes in. But it has to be a minimum of 5 years or upwards. And that's the way the lads go. So they'd know which casks, and they'd do it every couple of weeks, and they'd be like, right, we need to start picking casks for the next, if they've taken out 10,000 litres, they're like, right, give it a week or so, and we'll start picking casks to put back in, and then we'll start the process all over again. So they'd literally look at their Excel sheet and go, right, they'd maybe pick 10 or 15 casks and go, right, these were the ones that were close the last time. Let's try them again and see if they're ready for, going into the vat. And then it's a case of making sure that they're picking the right ones, putting it into the vat, and then again, slowly diluting it to get it to that flavor profile and that ABV that makes it consistent. It's tricky. Like, it's never going to be bang on, but it's to get it as close as possible that you can. And that's the beauty. And also, something's different. Like, we're small. We're not going to be like we're making 10 million litres and it's all going to be exactly the same down to 0.001% of a flavour. We're not going to be that way. We're going to get it as close as we can and try and be as transparent as we can with the customer.
That's fantastic.
It's about keeping as much flavour and as much, love in the whiskey for the customer, pretty much. Yeah.
And and one of the biggest differences is actually the distillation. Is it triple distillation? What you guys are able to do. What do you think that brings to whiskey?
Well, like, scientifically, it just strips it more of impurities, but then also, like, it's gonna come out of the spirit still a lot higher. So it's going to come out like 70 to 75%. So you are, like, we do cut that back down to about 66, 65 with water before we put it into the cask, because if you put it into the cask between 70 and 75, it just has that too much of a hard edge of a spirit, and it'll never, like a cask, it's kind of funny, a cask does round off whiskey. It kind of takes the edges off it, and it is round. But it just kind of takes, it softs it with the spirit moving in and out of the wood. But it means that some of those impurities are taken away. So you can kind of, for us, it's trying to get a balance between our new make spirit and the cask. We want both to have, like, if you're tasting our single malt and then you taste another Dingle Single Malt, even though they're in different casks, you should still get the Dingle Single Malt character, but you should also get the cask character. It's not one or the other, where some other places might be, like, as you said, different still sizes, different swan necks, to maybe make the spirit thinner so that they want more cask influence, or they want, so it's all just different. For us, we want a nice kind of balance. But the funny thing is, I'd say 60%, if not 70% of Irish distilleries have done double distillation as well. It's just, it wouldn't be of age. We've done a lot of double distillation as well, but it's just not old enough just yet. But the predominant favorite, let's say, style of distillation over here is triple distillation. But a lot of distilleries have done double and peated as well.
It's very interesting. I've got Malcolm from YouTube. His comment here is that there's lots of layers of flavour here, and the uniqueness showing through the handcraft nature, which I totally agree with. I think this is a fabulous whiskey, especially for this time of year, actually.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We tried to make a whiskey that was kind of, the best way I always say it is to make it approachable, because especially here in Ireland, we're getting a lot younger of a demographic drinking whiskey.
Okay.
So whereas before, like I used to run pubs for a living, long time ago. I'm a lot older than I look. But I ran pubs, and like whiskey over here in Ireland was literally an old man, pint of Guinness and a whiskey, and that was it. And if I came in, or anybody under the age of 40 went in and ordered a whiskey, you were ordering it wrong, you were drinking it wrong, what the hell were you doing? All this kind of stuff. Where now the biggest whiskey drinkers at the moment is 20 to 35-year-olds here in Ireland, lads and girls, and they are being very adventurous. They're drinking it neat, they're drinking it with ice, they're coming up with some of the high-end cocktail bars are coming up with some absolutely fantastic cocktails. And it's just, for us, we wanted something that was approachable to somebody that might be new to whiskey, but also if you were a raging alcoholic, you'd love it as well. But no, it was just something that we wanted to kind of try and hit everybody that drinks whiskey, not scare someone away that was new to whiskey, because sometimes, like the bar I ran, we had like 100 different whiskeys, and like the worst thing you can do to somebody is like give them like the most peated bomb of a whiskey to start them off in their whiskey journey, instead of starting them off nice and slow and build them and see what flavor profiles, what style of whiskey, what cask types they like, if they like peated, light, heavy, medium, all that kind of. So you don't want to scare them away at the start by, throwing them in the deep end. It can be fun sometimes to watch, but it's generally not good if you want them to keep drinking whiskey.
Oh, that's fun. So you mentioned at the beginning that for a long time, Ireland was sort of dominated by some really large players.
Yeah.
I'm particularly thinking of Middleton, their massive portfolio. And then you guys came out and sort of under that craft umbrella. We're having some more comments saying that they're enjoying the refreshingly open and honest approach that you guys have.
Thanks.
And that's, an incredibly brave thing to do, to put your flag in the ground. And people are clearly loving it. What is the future looking like for you guys? What do you want to achieve? What can we expect from you guys going forward?
So we, like the single malt that you're trying, the Dingle Single Malt, that's our first core release. Before that, we only did limited releases and batches. But now in a month and a bit, we will be releasing a single pot still to go beside it. So single pot still is a kind of an Irish style of whiskey. It uses malted and unmalted barley. So our recipe will be 60 malted and 40 unmalted. It just gives you a little bit more spice and a bit more creamy and oily texture in your mouth. The downside of it is the yield is a bit less because you're using unmalted. And then we're also releasing a 10-year-old single malt. So we're kind of coming of age. And to put it like, there was only 4 distilleries in Ireland in 2012, and now there's 54. So that kind of shows you what's happened in those like 12 to 13 years. And a lot of the guys like Dingle, the brainchild of Dingle started when the lads finished work, sitting down having a pint. So they've run pubs as well. And Oliver and Liam, their cousins, they were sitting down one night, and Oliver was like, you know what, I think we should open up a distillery. And Liam was like, yeah, let's open it beside the brewery. And Oliver was like, in here in Dublin. And Liam was like, Oliver was like, no, let's open it down in Dingle. And if you went to Dingle about 10, 15 years ago, the roads were pretty tricky to get in and out of. They've only done them up recently. Trying to get a lurry in with malts and stuff was fun. As one of the lads said to me, when you dislocate your shoulder at a rugby match and you have to get an ambulance across the mountain, you know how bumpy it is. But the lads decided to build a distillery in an old mill down in Dingle. And it was like, the beauty of it is that the lads literally built what they could afford. So that's why it's small, it's crap, but they've been working in the industry since the 80s, and they know it inside out. And like, I think it's one of the things that's going to stand to us is that we've just kept a steady ship. We like, as I said to you, you can ask me any question about us. We have nothing to hide. If I don't know the answer, I don't know the answer. I'm not going to, we are who we are. We make single malts, we make single pot still, and we make gin and vodka. Thankfully, we were able to, with the gin and the vodka, we were able to hold our whiskey until it was ready. And now we're kind of coming to that point where I would say we're moving from those teenage years of being a baby whiskey distillery into adulthood, especially with a core 10-year-old coming on stream. and single pot still. So the whole idea is that we're going to keep building out a core range. Yeah, which for me is very exciting because I've been on this journey. I'm with Dingle now 9 years, I think, or something like that. So like when the lads first started, I was running pubs and I used to sell their gin and vodka. So so I've been kind of following from the start and then jumped on board and just kept going ever since. Yeah. So it's good crack as well, though. We're a bit of a crazy bunch. We play hard, but we party hard too.
Fantastic. And before you go, so is the distillery open
Yeah.
to visitors?
We run tours from I think the first tour is at 10:30 in the morning until 5 o'clock in the evening. There's one every 30 or 40 minutes. They book out pretty quick because we only take about 12 to 15 people, because like when you're doing the tour, you are right beside the lads and the girls distilling. And I mean, you are like, the gangway is 2 foot wide. And if they're measuring one of the wash back or seeing how far along the fermentation is, you're standing right beside them. If they're empty, like the lads have to jump in and dig out the mash tun. If you're okay with jumping into a mash tun and digging it out by hand, they'll let you do it, because then that means they don't have to do it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Dave, I've loved that so much. But you're actually going to come back later on, aren't you? You're going to.
Oh yeah. I'm here for the evening. Don't worry, you haven't got rid of me yet.
Oh, fabulous! Thank you so much for your honesty.
No problem. Thanks a million. Thanks a million for your time. Cheers.
See you in a bit. Oh, I just think this is a wonderful whiskey. You often talk about a whiskey that deserves a permanent place on your shelf, and I think that this is one. And Irish whiskey is a really fascinating region to explore. We mentioned there at the end about that it was one of the whiskies they were going to develop was going to be malted and unmalted barley, which, if you know anything about Scotch whiskey, they can only use fully malted barley. So they do have that freedom to explore slightly different flavours that maybe the Scotch whiskey distilleries don't have the privilege of doing. That was wonderful. Right. Hopefully, it feels like everything's going quite well technology-wise this evening. We can now let in our next guest. It worked.
It works. Good evening, James.
How are you doing, Scott? Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. I'm really enjoying this Dingle. It's what a wonderful dram it is.
Isn't it?
Tonight.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely
Really
superb.
fabulous.
And the mouthfeel and the coat, the viscosity is absolutely tremendous.
Yeah, really, really lovely. But Scott, we're here to talk to you now. Where are you coming from this evening?
So I'm not at the distillery. I'm actually at home, but I'm from Inchdairnie distillery based in Glenrothes in Fife.
Fantastic. We can pretend that you're at the distillery, right?
Yes,
you don't
we
need
can.
to tell us.
I couldn't get the backdrop to work. That's why it's just in the back wall of my kitchen, I'm afraid.
Fabulous. Okay. So we're in Scotland now. It'd be lovely to know a little bit more about your distillery. I reckon probably not that many people will have heard of the distillery in the past. However, you guys are really making waves currently.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, we are like Dingle. We're a young distillery. We've only been distilling since December 2015, and we have different equipment as well compared to what a traditional distillery would be. So traditional distillery would be, a hammer mill and a mash tun, as Dave was talking about there. We have a hammer mill and a mash filter. So what that enables me to do is, actually, it was interesting you were talking about it. I also, a few years ago, did a pot still in Scotland. Because of the equipment that we have here, it means we can do it. Because the problem with unmalted barley is you don't have enough enzymes to do the conversion of all the sugars. But with this equipment that we have, and we used different malted barley, we were able to produce a pot still in Scotland.
Oh, how interesting. I think for anyone that isn't quite sure, when people are making whiskey and they're using barley, and you might have come across this term called malted barley. in the short form of that is that they effectively trick the barley into thinking that it's nearly springtime by adding water and draining it, and then they're drying it out. So if anyone's not come across that as a term, that's what that is. But yeah, so tell us a little bit more about your distillery, because there is some interesting things that you have the
Yes, so
ability to do.
it was interesting now Dave talked about them being fully manual. We're the complete opposite. We are fully automatic. And that's intentional because with having the mash filter and a hammer mill, enables us to process different grains, but also in the distilling point of view, we have two condensers on each of our wash still and our spirit still, which is quite unique, and we have some energy recovery technology as well. We're capable of producing 4 million litres. We were only producing 2 million the last couple of years when we upgraded last year. But slightly different take on how Dingle are doing it, slightly different scale, but still very much the similarities. No, we use the control system to do the cut points, but the cut points have all been physically checked in the previous years and continually to be assessed by the operator. We also have a analyzer in the control room where we basically put the sample in and it tells you the strength. We don't need to use traditional thermometer and hydrometer, what you would get in a traditional distillery. So we are supposedly using very much modern, up-to-date technology, still in the quest for flavours from whiskey.
So something that struck me there, and I've been lucky enough to see one of these. You mentioned your condenser.
Yes.
So I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about actually what a condenser is.
Okay,
You
so
also mentioned about heat recovery, which is becoming more and more an important thing, and you're starting to see that pop up at lots of distilleries.
yeah, I mean, with condensing is basically where you take the vapor, which contains your alcohol, because the principles of distillation is the fact that alcohol's got a lower boiling point than water. So when you heat it up like a big kettle, you get the vapor, which is predominantly the alcohol. So what you then do is you convert it from the vapor phase into liquid phase by cooling it down. So you hear a lot of distilleries talking the traditional ways with doing a worm tub, which would be a big bath of cold water, and that again would be cooling it down. The next change in technology was a shell and tube heat exchanger, which is as it sounds, it's a copper shell, and inside is a series of smaller tubes. And what you would do is you would have a cooling element going in the tubes and the hot vapor on outside. That interaction cools it down. But what we do is we've got two condensers. The first condenser, we actually use condensate from the heating process. We take steam, which heats up the contents of the still. That steam cools down during that heat transfer to form condensate. We put the condensate in the first condenser. What that does is it heats up the condensate, which we then recover as steam back into the process. Our second condenser is similar to the first one, but we use warm water in the tubes. So again, we're recovering that energy, but also cooling down the vapor to get all of the spirit into the liquid form. So it's using current technology because energy efficiency is very much key. In running a distillery, your biggest cost is your energy bill behind the cost of your malted barley. So the more energy efficient you can be, then the cheaper you can produce your spirit.
Fabulous. Okay, right. I'm not going to make the same mistake I did before. I'm going to let people try the whiskey. So could you introduce what we're drinking this evening? And I also already have a comment about the name of the distillery being different to this. It'd be great to discuss that as well.
Yep. So this here is KinGlassie. So KinGlassie is the name of the brand. So people may have heard us before that we released our inaugural product 2 years ago called Rilo, which was a rye whiskey. So within a distillery, we are we have defined spirit types that we produce throughout the year. So in a normal distillery, you may get one spirit type, you may get two, and that they may have a peated version. But in Inchdairnie, we have 9 styles of spirit that we produce throughout a calendar year. So for the product that's in everybody's glass is KinGlassie. So this is our peated single malt, and I only produce this spirit for 1 week every year. So it's from Inchdairnie Distillery, but it's KinGlassie is the brand, which is a peated single malt. So that's why it's called KinGlassie. What we tend to do is we name our spirits and our brands from the area surrounding the distillery. So we're in the outskirts of Glenrothes, and there's a small village just down the road from us called KinGlassie. So that's why the spirit is named KinGlassie.
Fascinating, fascinating.
So on the
This is
nose, I mean, it was interesting that Dave was talking about the big peat monster that people can sometimes get. What we were trying to do in developing the KinGlassie is we wanted to try and showcase peated whiskey in a slightly different way. So what we've used here is we've used mainland peat. It's from the East Coast. We're from the East Coast. It's from the East Coast up north. And what that's giving us is more of the smoky influence rather than the medicinalness or the dryness that people may
Mhm.
associate as peated whiskey, which tends to be predominantly from Islay. So what we were trying to do is what we do at the distillery is all about flavour. So by doing a peated whiskey, people then have a preconception of what that is going to taste like. And what we're trying to do is what they get is maybe different to what they think they're going to be getting. So on the nose, there's only a very subtle and highlight that there's some smokiness in it, not as intense as you may associate. It's only when you take a taste. So cheers everybody if you've not had a taste. It's only when you taste it you start to get that smokiness, but there's a lovely mouthfeel, a lovely texture. I always think you get a bit of chewiness to it,
Mm.
and the texture is almost like a velvetiness coming through. I get sweetness that then turns into a nuttiness. Now, that nuttiness is from the Amontillado casks that we've used for the second maturation. So KinGlassie is called double maturation because it spent 5 years in ex-bourbon refill casks and then 3 years in Amontillado seasoned casks. So it's got, because it's over 3 years, it's almost like, it is a whiskey in its own right by that three. So that's why we've called it a double maturation, not a finish.
Okay,
And what we were trying to do is to have a whiskey that is peaty in nature, but a good introduction to people of peat. No, peat can be very much divisive, like Marmite. You can either love it or you hate it. So what we've been trying to do with the KinGlassie is people that are interested in peated whiskey, but quite unsure on how they can move forward with it. So that's what we're trying to really think. We want people to stop and think about. Well, you get a lot of people saying, I don't like peated whiskey. And what we've been found is when they taste this, they go, actually, I think I could learn to like this type of whiskey. And that's what whiskey's all about. It's all about pushing boundaries and learn and people learning. We want people to come with an open mind and what the preconception of peated whiskey is, just to do it in a different way. And I love the comments. No, sweet nuttiness. Yep, that's exactly what we get. And that's the Amontillado casks doing their magic with lovely interaction with the peat.
Mm.
It's interesting somebody come in there with burnt toffee. So the casks that we use are American oak, and it's virgin oak. It's dried in Spain for 2 years. Now, what we've chosen to do is when people talk about the terminology sherry, they think of Jerez, that wonderful region in Spain. We've gone northeast there to a place called Montilla, and in Montilla we found this brilliant cooper who takes this American oak, ships it from America, air dries it in the Spanish heat and sun, and then they make casks here. That then goes to a local bodega where they'll then fill it with the seasoned wine. So in this instance, it was Amontillado. So you're getting the lovely interaction in the cask, the spirit taking those lovely notes of the Amontillado, but also the oak behind it is still giving you that caramel flavour. So again, that's adding to the flavour. What we're trying to do is build up layers within the whiskey from the combination of the cask, but also the seasoning of that cask that work in particular well with the smokiness, because I get a lovely chewiness, and then the tobacco notes all come through as well.
Yeah, I think this one is one of those fabulous whiskies. You sort of mentioned about the different types of peat, and maybe the Islay peat that's a little bit wetter can be a little bit stronger, and this
Yep.
is like a Highland peat. But also that cask influence. We've actually, for any of you that don't know, I work at the whiskey shop in Exeter, and we've been lucky enough to have this bottle open for sampling, and people that are a little bit maybe tentative
Yep.
to peat have loved it, but then also people that are pretty, well adversed with all types of whiskey, have been like, oh, this is something new, and I think that's something that you guys, that's an amazing thing to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie, when you have a concept that you think about. I mean, it all comes together, and it almost is what you were hoping it to be and more.
Hmm.
That's a great experience to be. I mean, for this one here, it was 8 years in the making, but we had no 18 months before we even put any malted peated malt into the system. We were talking about what we were trying to do, where we could get it. So this is a culmination of 10 years, not just the 8 in the cask. It's a culmination of 10 years in total about sourcing the right casks, getting the right peat. So it's all worked out really, really well. Really, really pleased with the end result.
So that must have been a lovely day. It's all well and good, isn't it, when you sort of have these concepts. However, with whiskey, there's a long time after you've sort of made the new make spirit that you're just kind of sitting around waiting and hoping.
As Dave was saying, you do sample the spirit on a regular basis. So I would to say you're waiting around. There is an element of wait. I mean, no doubt about it. But you're monitoring it.
Yeah.
Is it going in the right direction that you're looking it to be? Because with being a young distillery, we don't have any heritage. We've got no real key uh, information to say that by doing X and Y gives you this.
Hmm.
We're very much writing that book as we go along, and we're also learning and looking at as we go as well. So, for instance, the KinGlasie double matured that we have in the glass here, there is another product that's called KinGlasie Raw, and that was to ask the question, what happens if we left the spirit in the original ex-bourbon refill casks for that little bit longer? So what we've done with the KinGlasie is the same starting liquid. It's in the
Hmm.
same casks for 5 years. But after 5 years, we've taken a portion and put it into the Amontillado season cask. But we've also left a portion in the existing cask, and they've diverged for the last 3 years. But what we're finding is two completely different flavour profiles. And the raw, as we called it, is probably more attuned to what people who are peated whiskey drinkers are wanting. But there is an element of roundness, as it was quite interesting the Dave using that word. There's an element of roundness of the raw. It gives you a lovely. It's more of a peat hit, but it's not as intense as maybe you've got before. So you're still get that peatiness, but there's a lovely sweetness coming in from the casks as well as a roundness that we're getting from the maturation. So we're really learning and listening to the whiskey as it's maturing. We're only at the very early stages for the KinGlassie. I'm interested to see in what other directions can we go by aging it for longer, or also seeing is there other types of casks that we can be bringing into it to because the Amontillado is only one style of cask,
Hmm.
and also double maturing is only one style of cask. So it's really trying to see what direction can we take it.
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear because traditionally peated whiskies have often been matured in ex-bourbon barrels, just because it seems to be a better canvas for peat.
Yep.
However, we are starting to see people experimenting with sherry casks and wine casks, and just seeing like, how would you put this? How you can sort of elongate that palate.
Yep. Yep. No, without doubt. And I mean, smoke and sweet works really well, but it's understanding what sweetness can you bring into it. So it's interesting you spoke about, the wine. The wine can give you a lovely juiciness, that lovely, you get that lovely black currants and other ones. Yeah, that's something that I'd love to be able to trial out. So for me, this is just the starting point for the KinGlassie. This will be our core release
Hmm.
because it's interesting as Dave was talking about. We've defined this is our starting point, and that's where we'll continually go back to. But there is room and scope to do a little bit more tinkering. Tinkering is part of the DNA of the distillery. As I said at the start, we've also done a pot still spirit that's currently only 2, 3 years old, and we've got it in a variety of casks. And I'm seeing how that matures, different to the normal spirit that we produce. So we're very much at the early stages of discovery at the distillery, but very much like Dave, we've got the luxury of releasing the spirit when we feel it's ready. We're
Hmm.
not we're not having to release it very, very quickly. So for in this instance, we felt at 8 years old, we were getting that lovely balance of the smokiness coming through and interacting wonderful with the Amontillado cask. But I also want to age longer to see if I get any more flavours that I'm not seeing at that young age, or equally, just to learn how far I can push and stretch the spirit. If you look at the existing people who produce peated whiskey, there's quite a wide range of ages that they do. Some as young as 5, then you get them 16, 18, older. They've learned that over a number of years. So we're just learning and listening to the spirit as it's maturing and the different casks that we have available to us. So it's very much an exciting time for us. And hopefully people will be interested and like what they're getting with a 8-year-old KinGlassie, but remain with us as we do older products as well. And also we've been doing some tinkering with the cask type as well for the subsequent years. We know we used some different initial casts, and the next one's coming out, and again it's given a different float flavour profile for what we got for this release. So it's really, really interesting, and what's coming. Everybody just need to wait and see it in the coming years.
It's really lovely to see distilleries like yourself not being shackled to sort of like the traditional age categories, which I guess in the past was quite good because it was sort of seen as a marker of quality, but it can be quite shackling for a distillery. And if you've got a fabulous whiskey at 8 years old, why not share it with the world?
Yeah, I
So
mean,
it's
I
really
mean,
lovely
the
to
thing
see.
with the peated whiskey is one of these ones where you can, because of the peatiness and the interaction it has with the flavour in your mouth, you can release it at a slightly younger age than normal.
Mhm.
Uh, but again, you also get that added benefit with age. Now, what I'm trying to find is the sweet spot for our peated whiskey, and I mean that when ours, we, as I said, although we found we've got a good sweet spot at 8, I want to age it for longer to see is the sweet spot really at 8, or is it 9, or is it 10? Uh, let's wait and see. And at this moment in time, I don't know what that is because I need to wait until it's 9, 10, 11, 12 years to assess it against the younger one to see is it, have we reached the sweet spot yet? So it's very much a work in progress.
So as you sort of mentioned there, you're a relatively new distillery. What should we be looking out for from you guys going forward?
We've released 2 of our brands to date. So Rye Law was our rye whiskey, which we'd released in 2023. We're doing the second vintage of that, the vintage 2018. That's coming out later this year. And what we've done is we've taken that original grain, followed the same maturation distilling process, but put it into a different wood type. What I mean by that is we've stuck with virgin oak, but we've chosen a different region of America, which has actually given a different flavour profile. So that's one that we're working on. But equally, I'm well aware, no, it's very interesting that Dave said, no, I think that Dingle is a great, easy access, lovely sipping whiskey, especially for this time of year. So I'm looking at in the coming years my single malt. No, this was our KinGlassie is our inaugural peated single malt, but I've also got single malt coming out in the coming year, so that's one to watch for. But equally, we do a bit of experimentation, and the brand that banner name that comes under that is called Prinlaws. So in that fold, we've produced whiskey from oats, whiskey from wheat. I've done a sour mash. I've done a pot still. Uh, so they're very much as a developmental type, experimental type. They're the ones to watch in the coming years. So what I'm trying to do is create a portfolio of brands that are all whiskey, but cover quite a breadth of flavour profile, so that there's a whiskey for everybody. Because I definitely believe when people say they don't like whiskey, my answer is always you've just not got found the right whiskey for you.
Yeah.
Because I think whiskey is, and also as you get older, depending on what you've been eating, that all affects your flavour and your taste. So it just maybe you've not found the right whiskey for you at that moment in time. So it's all about, I like to excite the consumer that the there was a distillery. The first 2 releases we bought are quite extreme. Rye whiskey and peated whiskey. We've not gone to what people thought would be as a single malt, but that is coming. But with our Inchdairnie twist, which I'll not say any more about, you'll just have to wait and hear about it in the coming years.
Oh, fabulous, fabulous. What a way to end it. I love that, Scott. It's almost like you had that planned, maybe.
No, not at all. Not at all.
You can use that again in the
Yes,
future.
definitely. I'll take this recording so I remember it because I'll need to make sure I remember that I said that.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. And Scott, you're going to come back again in a minute as
Yes,
well. We're going to have a
yes,
chat.
definitely,
Oh,
definitely.
thank you so much. Well, I'll
Okay.
say goodbye and then I'll say hello again in a minute. Um, Gosh, that's been fabulous. It is getting quite dark here. It was sunny when we first started. I clearly need to invest in some studio lights so that you can keep seeing me going forward. I think it's been wonderful this evening to have two distilleries from different countries, but and one that's fully automated and one that's craft. But they're both talking about trying to explore different types of whiskies and really delving into what their output can be. So hopefully, we've not done this with our new platform, but we're going to try and bring everyone back in. Touch wood, everything's worked so well. Here we go.
Yep.
Yes.
We're back. It worked.
It's been seamless. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased. Well, thank you both for joining me again.
No, thank you for letting me back in.
Dave, I wonder if I could start with you. If you could just give your thoughts on the whiskey that we've just been talking about.
It's one of my favorite cask types, Amontillado.
Really
I
interesting.
was delighted. Oh, I think it's just one of those ones. It's nearly one of those things. It's like a happy accident. It's like when they were making the sherry, the floor dies, then it kind of oxidizes and it gives it that nuttiness. And it's just like, I could swim in Amontillado and I would be happy forever. I just think it's unbelievable. So good job. Nice work.
No,
Savage.
Oh, fabulous! And yeah, and then Scott, what were your well? You did mention it a few when we were talking there, but your thoughts
Yeah,
on the
no,
Dingle?
I absolutely love this. I mean, I've really nearly finished the pouch just because it's such an easy drinking. And as I said, no, I'm very much the whiskey of the moment. No, people say what your favourite whiskey is. It's whatever's in my glass at that moment in time. So it's unnaturally warm in Scotland at the moment. But
Mhm.
this is just going down a treat. I mean, it's just the flavors, the fruitiness is coming through. I love the mouthfeel and viscosity. It just wants you. It's so moorish. I just want to keep drinking it. It's such a really, really good dram. So very well done.
Cheers. How did you find making your oats mash, or you're distilling your oats mash? Was it interesting?
So what we did is to make the rye whiskey, we do 53% rye and 47% malted barley. So when we did the oats, we just swapped the rye out with oats. So it was malted oats we used at 53% and 47% malted barley. Now, what the only problem that we had is that oats is quite a low density.
Yeah.
It's quite light. So what I did is we put the oats in first and put the heavier malted barley on top. But what happened is we milled it, the oats fluffed up, and my batch bin hit the high level before I'd finished milling it. So that meant we had to change the batch size. We normally are 4 tons, so we had to reduce it to about three and a half
Yeah.
tons. But every run for the first week, we did it for 1 week, and I must have been on site constantly for the first 4 or 5 days, just because we had to do tweaks, we had to do changes. And I'll tell you, at the end of it, I learned more about my mill, so that was a good thing. But what was fantastic is when we started pulling it through into the distillation, it was like porridge oats in your nose.
Yeah.
And then our new make spirit is actually naturally sweet, but it's the creaminess that the oats are
Yeah.
giving
It's a
for it.
mad creamy texture it adds. It
Oh, it's
adds this
fantastic.
unbelievable. Oats is just one of those things. You'd love to use more of it, but it's so finicky to play with. Us in a manual system, I swear to God, it's like porridge balls, and you just want to
Well,
murder
I mean,
it.
I suppose for me, one of the things I love about Dingle is the fact it's a wooden
Yeah, mashed on.
mash
Yeah.
mash tun that you have. I mean, that is so. I mean, that's so unique.
Yeah, you have a chat with the lads, and then they'll tell you what it's like jumping in it twice a day and digging out a
Yeah.
ton.
But yeah, I think oats and the equipment that we have on site by having the hammer mill and the mash filter means we
Yeah,
can tinker with different grains that maybe other not standard traditional distilleries would be struggling with. But that's who we are. I mean, the lads at the distillery, when we built the distillery, the initial operators, there was 7 of them, 5 in the destined for the distillery and 2 in the warehousing. None of them had been to a distillery, never mind worked in one. But what that means that they were they didn't know any better. So when if I had to tell somebody we do 9 different styles of spirit a year, they would look at me as if I'm mad. But the team at the distillery, it's all they've ever known. So it's second nature. No. So when I come to them saying I want to try something we talked about, we did a sour mash. I want to do a sour mash, and this is what I'm going to do. Most people said they say you're crazy, but the guy.
I was just going to say that sour mash must have been very interesting to do.
Yeah. So I mean, for those listening, a sour mash is basically you take some of your pot ale. So your pot ale is what's your co-product that's left after your wash distillation, and it's basically high in sugars. It's your dead yeast cells and your unconverted sugar from your fermentation, and it's acidic. So what it's traditionally done is in America, where the water source is alkaline, by using the sour mash, you actually change the pH within the washback, which is to the benefit of the yeast. But what we did is we put it into the mash conversion vessel for our mash filter, mashed as normal, put it into the washback, added a different yeast because it needed to stand more acidic conditions. And then when we started distilling it, the esters that were coming out of it is just wonderful. And I have to say that when I put it into the cask, I was unsure whether we're going to see that esters change or still be visible or noticeable as it matured. But as it's getting older, it's getting better and better. So
I'd say because it'll be coming in so like full on that in the cask, it's going to just bring it down to that level where it's just going to be absolutely bang.
And what we did is we put it into ex-bourbon casks because as a starting point, we know what to expect from an ex-bourbon cask. I want to see what influence the wood's going to be bringing in on the esters, and it's so far so good. I mean, as it's maturing, it's been tremendous. And then when we in 2023 when we did the pot still, that was a wonderful. The oiliness, like you said,
it's
the
great.
barley,
it is,
the oiliness and the spice you get on the mouthfeel, the whole body is just completely changed. And the spirit. So I've put that into a selection of different casks that were available to me. So I'm monitoring them closely. But I love pot still whiskey. I've loved it for many years because it just gives you a different flavour. Altogether.
They're trying to change the law over here now to bring back some of the old pot still recipes because it used to be like you could use 4 or 5 or 6 different grains. The technical file was literally 45 minimum 45% malted, 45% unmalted, and 10% other grain. But now we're trying to bring it to a third, so that you can bring back some of the old recipes from the 1950s and the 1920s and stuff like that. But it's just we're allowed to use a couple of enzymes just to extract more of the starch or the sugars from the wash. So that's where we kind of, but still at the same time, like I always give the example, if you started with a ton of malt mash and a ton of pot still mash, you'd fill a whole bottle with the malt and you'd fill the bottle to about 60-70% with pot still. Because you're using the unmalted barley, your yield is a lot less. It's one of those labors of love. We love drinking it, but with a manual system, it's I won't use the word to make. So it's especially like even though you grist it down, you're grinding the malt down. In our manual system, the unmalted, just those the ends of a malt where it's got that nice. Even though you grist it down, it tends to fall in these little porridge balls and you just stick. What's those things that you used to get? I grew up on a farm, and you used to grab them and you throw them at somebody and stick onto them. Those like just the size of a football stuck to the side of the wooden mash tun, and the lads and the girls are going off and they're there with the shovel trying to get it, and you're just like, they're like fucking pot still, but then to be sitting down at the bar a couple hours later drinking pot still. So like if you want to drink it, you got to make it.
It's a labor of love, and I mean there is no there's no his heritage or history
Yeah.
for doing it. So what I did is, I can't remember exactly what I did with it, but I had to use more malt than the barley. And because we can't add any enzymes, I was restricted to how much barley I could do. But what I did is, because I did it in 2023, that was when we released our inaugural bottle of Rilo. So what I did is I added some rye into the mixture as well, just a little
Yeah.
bit, about 5%, just as a little nod to it. So I'm interested to see as it matures, am I getting that a little, just a touch of spice, just to like your salt and
Yeah.
pepper, just to
Because
give it that
the
little bit.
rye, for me, the style of whiskey rye and the style of single pot still whiskey are probably the two closest related in that kind of, they give you the aroma of, like I would always say, walking into a grain store, like a
Yes.
farm grain store. It just fills you and it makes you want to chew the air. But then it also has that little bit of spice at the back of the throat, and the nose just gives you that kind of tickle. It's just like, ooh, something's going on here. This kind of bready, kind of biscuity
Well,
spice, and like it's
when we
class.
were
Oh yeah, the rye is a good addition to the pot still, big time.
the pot still, when we finished the spirit, it was like going into a maltings. See
Yeah.
that earthiness and that as you start to what's the steep it? See the steeping? No,
Yeah,
that's what it's. There's an element of that. So
yeah,
it's not just purely coming from the barley,
yeah.
which was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I always make the joke. It's like Homer. Yeah, when you're doing pot still or drinking or producing pot still, it's like I was like, it's like Homer Simpson walking around and eating invisible donuts in the air. You just want to chew the air. It just fills your cheeks, and you're just like, let me just chew the air. Leave me alone. I know I look crazy, but just let me chew the air.
Oh,
Well, that's a very good description. Of it, really good.
and also, what a way to end the evening, right? With that image
Of
of
Dave
us
going around pretending to eat donuts in the air.
to chew the Oh, well, I thank both of you so much. It's been a wonderful evening.
Cheers.
So fascinating. Two different distilleries, but with so much in common, and two great whiskies this evening. It's been fabulous. So I think, yeah, a very good evening to both of you, and thank you so much for sharing.
Cheers,
Oh,
Sláinte.
thank you very nice, Langer.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Oh, well, that was fabulous. I feel like we could have gone on for ages there. And we covered so much. And wasn't that a joy at the end, just to see that kind of discussion about all the different intricacies of just one little part of whiskey production, just the mashing. So if you do have any questions, because we did cover quite a lot at the end there, if there was any bits that you didn't quite understand, please get in contact on our social medias, and we can clarify that, and we can maybe bring it up next time. I hope you've enjoyed this. This has been a bit earlier. The whole idea is that you should have received your whiskies beginning of this week, and then we do the live, because some of the feedback that we had is that by the time the live had actually happened, you drank all your whiskies. So we're just listening to your feedback and trying to make it as pleasurable experience for you as possible. Please tell any of your friends. It'd be great to see more of you here. I've loved it this evening, and hopefully we'll see you next time. So have a good evening. Bye, everyone.